What's up guys, today I'll be showing you exactly how Calus Skulls and Force of Will affects your damage. I feel like a lot of people don't know actually how this works, if anyone knows how this works, and we did a lot of testing and figured out how to manipulate the skulls, maximize the amount of skulls that spawn in, and your damage. And yes, skulls are not random, there is a set pattern that we figured out, and I'll show you, so let's get into this. So, right here, we have a 1 to 5 ratio, which means there's 1 person in Dimension and 5 people in Throne Room. As you'll see as the video goes, skulls are determined by the amount of people in Dimension versus Throne Room. It goes by percentage. So for this example, we have 1 in Dimension and 5 in Throne Room. So it's a 1 to 5 ratio, which is 16.7% of people in the fire team are in the Dimension. So with this ratio, which is 16.7%, only 32 skulls spawned in total. As you see, in all these clips we stun as late as possible, as best as we can to make it consistent. But as you see, we only got times 32, and he wasn't missing skulls. As you saw, he hit every single skull. So this clip right here is taken from a 2-man, where there's one person in Dimension and 1 person in Throne Room, which means it's a 50% ratio. As you can see, there's a lot more skulls in the last clip, and the only thing we changed is how many people were in the Throne Room. A lot of people think it's either affected by either luck, randomness, lag, connection, but no, it is strictly based on the ratio of people from Throne Room to Dimension, or I should say Dimension to Throne Room. Keep it a set pattern. As you saw, you missed a lot. Missed not a lot, but missed a few.
These dogs.
Basically, estimate with a 50% ratio, you should get somewhere in the neighborhood of 110 skulls spawn in. And this was actually taken from our 2-man run.
3,
so you'll
2,
see he'll
1, go.
step on here in a second. And as you see, got 106, and he missed quite a few. Alright, this next clip is to prove that it's ratio based, not how many people are in the Dimension. Because right here we have 2 people in Dimension and 2 people in Throne Room, which is yet again 50%, the same ratio, but now we have a different amount of people in each room. So, if our theory is correct, we'll get the same amount of skulls because the ratio is the same, even though the amount of players is different. As you can see, it looks generally like the same amount of skulls. The only difference is with 2 people, they they target both people, so they're more spread out. As you can see, it's give or take basically the same amount of skulls that spawned in. It looks the same. So, it did that, everything come out, and let's see what he got. He should be in the neighborhood of 100 to 110, and got 113. Like I said, it was a 50% ratio, so the same amount of skulls spawned in, but since there was 2 people shooting, they obviously shot a higher percentage of the skulls, but the same spawned in as the last clip. So this one right here is a 1-person Dimension, 2 people in the Throne Room, which is a 33%. So given 33% is obviously less than 50, we should notice that he gets less skulls to spawn in. As you can see, they don't look as doesn't look like there's as many skulls. They're more spaced out. There's not as many spawning in. As you can see, there's gaps between them. They're not as, consistent as the 50% ratio. And using our method, or what we think the pattern is, he should be getting around 80 to 90 skulls. And as you see, he got 86 and he missed a few. Alright, this clip is taken from their speedrun. There is 4 people in that Dimension and 2 people in the Throne Room, which yields a 66.7% ratio from Dimension to Throne. So, using this, we should be able to assume that they're going to get probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 120 skulls to spawn in. As you can see, there is a lot of skulls coming out of his mouth pretty fast. And I think in this clip they end up getting 106-ish skulls, but they stunned pretty early because they didn't want to risk wiping. So if they pushed the stun out another 2 seconds, they would have gotten, that extra 15-ish skulls to spawn in, 10 to 15 skulls. So with a 66 ratio, you should experience almost 120 skulls spawning in if you push the stun all the way. No, they got a 108. Yeah, and they stun like 3 seconds early. Alright, so we found a way to trick the game into thinking there's more people in the dimension. So let's say you're doing a 3-man, for example, which this clip is, but you want one person to solo the dimension. But you don't want a 33% ratio because that's only 80 some skulls. You still want it to think that there's 2 people in that dimension. So what you do, once the balls despawn, you can jump off the map and have your teammate res you, and since you were still in the dimension when the balls despawn to TP you out, the game thinks you're in the dimension still, and now the game is reading it as a 2-to-1 ratio instead of a 1-to-2 ratio. As you see from the inside guy's point of view, right now it appears that he's in here by himself and there's still 2 people outside, so you think this would be a 1-to-2 ratio, which is 33%, which would yield 80 some skulls. That's not the case. If you trick the game, it now thinks it's a 66.7 ratio, and he's gonna get a roughly 120 skulls if he can hit them all. Obviously with 120 skulls solo, it's pretty difficult to hit them all, so obviously he misses quite a few. But as you can see, there's a lot of skulls spawning in. Like, look at all those skulls. So this is a good way to trick the game, and I'll explain more about it later, how this can benefit you in your everyday runs and also prestige mode future. As you see, he jumps on and he has 98, and he missed a lot because 120 overwhelms you solo. Alright, so I went ahead and made a graph of the ratio versus the skulls. Basically what this graph has shown you is anything under the intended like 50%, which is 3 and 3, it's kind of exponentially growing, but once you hit that, 40% to 50% area, then it's a linear, increase. So as you get a higher and higher percent, it's kind of is a steady slope. It's not, crazy. So anyways, we showed off all the damages now with different skulls to test how Force of Will actually applies to your damage. So I was using this rifle for every single clip, and right here with 10 skulls, you'll see I get 388 damage, and the base damage on this AR is 220. So 10 skulls basically took half of its damage and applied it to it. So with 20 skulls, I get 504, which is 116 more than it was last time. So, like I said, the gun hits 220 base damage. So if you take half of that base damage and add it to the next damage, is what you should get. It's hard to explain. I'll try to explain it at the end when there's a graph. At 30 skulls, for some reason, it's bugged. We tested it multiple times. We still got the same amount of damage as 20 skulls. So from 20 to 30 skulls gives you no extra damage for some reason. I don't know if it's a bug in the coding or what, but between 20 and 30 skulls, there's no difference. Like minor, like 1 or 2, damage. At 40 skulls, I got 461, which is now 112 higher than the previous amount. So once again, the gun hits 220 base, divide that in half, which is 110, and add that to the previous number. Now this is where it gets interesting. Once you get to 50 skulls, we hit 866, which is 245 more. And like I said, the base damage of the weapon is 220. So basically when you get to 50 skulls, it basically doubles. It starts adding the entire gun's damage to the number, instead of before where it was only adding 50% of the gun's damage. At 60 skulls, I hit 1235, which once again is 369 more than the previous one, which is now roughly 1.5 times as much as it was adding last time. And then at 70 skulls I hit 1502, which is now back down to the adding roughly the entire base damage of the gun to the previous number. It's kind of hard to explain until you see the graph and all the data at once, As you can see, 1502. Some of the numbers were 1496, but the highest I saw was 1502. And with 80 skulls, which is the highest we tested during this, I hit 1820 damage, which is 318 more than the previous one, which is 1.5 times the base damage of the weapon roughly added to the previous number. Then, once I show you this graph here in a second, I'll try to explain the overall pattern. It's not linear, it's exponential to extent, and basically what it's showing you is that for the first like 3 numbers we entered, which was 10, 20, 30. Well, 30 doesn't count because 30 for some reason was the same if we just get rid of that. So 10, 20, and 40 skulls, every time it went up by roughly 120. Then 50, 60, 70, it roughly went up by 240. Then 80, 90, 100, it roughly goes up by 360. Then 110, 120, 130, it should roughly go by 480, 480 every time. So the first 3 increases are all half of the original base value added each time. And the next 3 is the entire base value of the weapon added each time. Then the next 3 after that is 1.5 times the base value of the weapon added each time. And the next 30 is 2 times the base value of the weapon added every time. So it's following this weird like step pattern where every 30 skulls you get a step increase. So, but when you map it all out in a graph, it looks exponential, but it's not a true exponential increase, it's more of like a step. It's kind of hard to explain. I hope you guys kind of understand what I'm trying to say. Basically, the end of the story is between 10 and 20 skulls is only 120, and between 110 skulls and 120 skulls is 480. So as you get more and more skulls, the increase between the damage grows larger and larger. But anyways, hope you guys enjoy and learn something new here. And with Prestige coming out on Tuesday on Reset, knowing how to get the most skulls and what the skulls are going to do for your damage can greatly benefit you, because Prestige will actually be hard and you actually need to know what you're doing to complete it. So basically, for your everyday strategy, what you can do is you can run the 3 people in Dimension and 3 people in the Throne Room strategy, which is the most comfortable for most people. But what you can do is to have 2 people delay, stay in the Dimension a few seconds longer, wait for the TP bubbles to despawn, then die. Then have the person inside res one them, then that person that gets res the other guy. And now you're still doing a 3 and 3 strategy, but you trick the game into having a 5 Dimension to 1 Throne Room ratio, which will mean there's roughly 20 to 30 more skulls, which will mean you will be able to do more damage. So it's a pretty good way to up your damage without actually changing what you're doing. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.